Hello, I'm Leonardo Puglisi. It's Sunday, the 7th of August. You're watching 6 News, our top stories tonight. New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet calls on the Liberals not to be seen as Labor light in the first state council since the federal election loss, speaking about self-described failures as the young Liberals make 20 findings as part of a submission for the post-election review. Also, the Greens announced upper house candidates for the Victorian state election, aiming to take back the 4 seats they lost in 2018 as the Victorian socialists hold their campaign launch in Melbourne. Tributes continue to pour in after Australian music icon and lead singer of the Snickers, Judith Durham, dies at the age of 79. And is this the end of Infowars? Days after filing for bankruptcy, the US media company could be shut down after Alex Jones was ordered to pay $71 million after calling the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre a hoax. Good evening. New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet has called on the Liberal Party not to be seen as Labor light in the first state council since the party lost the federal election. Perrottet says the Liberals cannot be a party that simply runs on its track record and doesn't set a vision for our future, and he believes they failed to do that at a federal level. Tonight, the Young Liberals have also made their submission to a post-election review, writing that the Morrison government failed to deliver on its promise of a federal ICAC, and the party has failed to attract, retain and promote women. Reporter Lincoln Holmes has the details.
In the first New South Wales Liberal Party State Council since the federal election loss, the New South Wales Premier has spoken about what he believes were failures from the federal party.
We cannot be a party that simply runs on its track record and doesn't set a vision for our future. Now, this may be controversial to say in this room, but I believe that we failed to do that at a federal level.
Dominic Perrottet says the Liberal Party cannot be a clean-up crew for Labor's mess or Labor light. Perrottet called on the party faithful to unite around Liberal values and confirmed candidate selections would be strictly within the party's state operations instead of at the federal level, ahead of the March 2023 election. It comes ahead of a party room meeting to decide a new deputy party leader. Transport Minister David Elliott and Treasurer Matt Keane both want the job, but now it's been reported by Nine that Perrottet offered to create a parliamentary trade role for Elliott in exchange for dumping him from cabinet. Tonight, the youth branch of the Liberal Party is also having their say in a submission to a post-election review. They say the Morrison government failed its outreach to younger voters, failed to deliver its promise of an anti-corruption commission, failed to attract, retain and promote women, failed to increase the number of female members in the Liberal Party, and failed to promote women to senior leadership roles in the party. One finding says that electorates directly impacted by the effects of climate change swung towards parties and candidates with strong climate credentials, with the Greens and Teal Independents both winning seats off the coalition. It follows last week's news poll showing an increased support for Labor and just a 25% approval rating for Peter Dutton. Lincoln Holmes, 6 News.
Two parties on the Senate crossbench, the Jackie Lambie Network and the David Pocock Party, have joined forces, warning the federal government they won't be a, quote, rubber stamp for the climate change bill. The Greens have already confirmed they're supporting the bill, which has already passed the lower house where Labor holds majority. But in the upper house, at least one other crossbencher is needed. Now, that could be David Pocock, Jackie Lambie, Tammy Terrell, the UAP, One Nation, or a coalition senator that's crossed the floor. Pocock, Lambie and Terrell have told Nine they want all budget measures above a certain dollar amount that's yet to be determined to be assessed for their impact on Australia's carbon emissions. Analysts believe the other parties on the crossbench that we just mentioned, One Nation and the UAP, are less likely to back the bill. The Victorian Greens have announced candidates for the State Legislative Council ahead of the November state election. The party currently holds 3 lower house MPs and 1 upper house MP after losing 4 of their MLCs at the 2018 election amid a number of controversies surrounding some of their candidates. They're now aiming to win back those seats, and they're not the only ones, with the Victorian socialists today holding their campaign launch in Melbourne. Reporter Austin Pollock has more.
The Victorian Greens have unveiled their upper house candidates for the November state election, made up mostly of women. The party says they're going to contest every single seat in the Legislative Council, where they currently have 1 MP leader, Samantha Ratnam. The Greens lost 4 upper house MPs in Labor's 2018 election landslide, but retained their 3 in the lower house, picking up just over 10% of the vote. Their campaign was surrounded in controversy, with the ABC reporting at the time that one candidate rapped about assault and another liked Facebook pages that are degrading to women and racist. In addition to Ratnam in the Northern Metro region, Catherine Copsey will run in the Southern Metro region. Sarah Mansfield in Western Victoria, Bernadette Thomas in Western Metro, Kate Sinclair in Northern Victoria, Matt Morgan in Eastern Victoria, Ave Puglisi in North East Metro, and Alex Breskin in South East Metro. Meanwhile, the Victorian socialists, who currently do not have any MPs, have held their state election campaign launch today. They picked up 0.44% of the lower house vote in 2018 and 0.91% in the upper house. The party has also announced a protest against a Liberal Party fundraiser in Melbourne's West tomorrow, where leader Matthew Guy and controversial candidate Maria Deming are expected to attend. For a full list of A to Z candidates running in the Victorian election, head to our website, SIXNewsAU.com.
The Andrews government has rejected the Victorian Ombudsman's recommendation to compensate Victorians stuck in New South Wales last year after a border closure. As reported by The Age, people only had 12 hours to cross the border before it closed on July 20 after the Delta COVID-19 variant began to spread in Sydney. Ombudsman Deborah Glass said in December last year that the management of the border closure was inhumane and unjust, recommending the Vic government publicly apologise and consider giving people compensation. The government said at the time it would consider that, but has so far not apologised, and now, according to The Age, it has rejected that recommendation to compensate. Tributes continue to pour in tonight after Australian music icon and lead singer of the Snickers, Judith Durham, died. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said she was a national treasure and an Australian icon, and gave voice to a new strand of our identity and helped blaze a trail for a new generation of Aussie artists. Her kindness will be missed by many. The anthems she gave to our nation will never be forgotten. Opposition leader Peter Dutton said she gave voice to more than one generation of Australians through words of universal appeal, carried by melodies that once heard became fixed in our memories and indeed on this nation's identity. Her language was uniquely Australian and her voice a gift of universal beauty. Durham died in palliative care after a short stay in the Alfred Hospital in Melbourne following complications from chronic lung disease. She was 79. Australia's ambassador to Israel has spoken out amid ongoing Israeli strikes on Gaza. Paul Griffith says Australia, quote, respects Israel's right to defend itself. We call on parties to take immediate steps to halt the violence, maintain restraint and restore calm. The protection of civilians remains paramount. 10 people were killed by Israeli airstrikes in the Gaza Strip, reportedly including a top commander of a Palestinian militant group and a young girl, while around 50 were injured. The BBC reports the Palestinian Islamic Jihad fired 100 rockets into Israel in response, while overnight residential areas were reportedly targeted by Israeli strikes. At least a dozen people are dead and more than 25 injured after a bus carrying Polish pilgrims crashed in northern Croatia overnight. Polish officials say the bus was taking pilgrims to southern Bosnia when it veered off a motorway. An investigation has been launched into what happened, with many of the injured still currently in local hospitals. $71.3 million. That's the total cost Alex Jones has been ordered to pay by a US judge after calling the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre a hoax. Now, days after filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, Infowars, the media company he created back in 1999 that reportedly has a greater reach than some mainstream news websites with around 10 million monthly visits, could be shut down. US correspondent Jackson Gosnell has the details.
Leo, monitoring a lot here in the U.S., the big story right now is about Alex Jones owing millions of dollars to the family of a Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting victim. Now, Sandy Hook Elementary School was shot up years ago in a terrible shooting that took place at an elementary school. Well, Alex Jones, who is a well-known conspiracy theorist here in the U.S., he started calling it a hoax. And so since then, these families have faced harassment from those that follow Alex Jones and believe what he says. Now, Alex Jones, of course, has believed that this whole deal was a hoax from the beginning, and so a lot of people have taken his side. Now, while he's been accurate on some things in the past, this is clearly wrong. And the judge basically told him that during this trial, which, by the way, in this trial, Alex Jones' attorney on the defense, they had a backup of Alex Jones' cell phone, accidentally sent it to the plaintiff in the case. Well, the defense did not claim it as privileged, therefore the plaintiff was able to use that backup of his phone, which contained years of messages, against him. And get this, that backup of the phone contained messages that contradicted Jones's testimony up on the stand. So Alex Jones really having a hard time this week. He's been ordered to pay $4.1 million in compensatory damages and $45.2 million in punitive damages to the families of the victims, rather. And so this is just a very interesting case that has captivated the whole country right now. Alex Jones at this hour saying he can't even pay the settlement because he does not have those tens of millions of dollars. But some people disagree, because Alex Jones is very big with infowars, and infowars is reportedly worth tens of millions, maybe even hundreds of millions of dollars. So they believe the settlement, or the judgment rather, can be paid in this case. But I'll continue to keep you updated on what happens in this particular situation. Reporting from the U.S., I'm Jackson Gosnell. Back to you.
Snickers has apologised after calling Taiwan a country in a promotional ad. While promoting one of its products, the company said it was only available in the countries of South Korea, Malaysia and Taiwan. That caused some outrage on Chinese social media platform Weibo, where Mars Wrigley, the company that produces Snickers, later apologised, saying they, quote, respect China's national sovereignty and territorial integrity and conducts its business operations in strict compliance with local Chinese laws and regulations, but they did not explicitly say Taiwan was part of China, triggering further backlash, according to the ABC. Taking a look what's making news on SIXNewsAU.com right now, and Liberal Senator Sarah Henderson and Sky News have both falsely claimed that independent MP Monique Ryan voted against Labor's climate change bill, which passed the House of Reps. What actually happened that she voted against, accidentally, a Greens amendment. Both have now corrected their mistakes. Also, a new edition of Commonwealth Knowledge is out with Stuart Jeffrey. Can politicians hold UK citizenship? An in-depth look at dual citizenship in the federal parliament and how this all goes back to former PMs George Reid and Andrew Fisher. John Tingle, founder of the Shooters, Fishers and Farmers Party and father of three, including ABC journo Laura Tingle, has died at the age of 90. A look at his history in the media and the party itself, including his own time in Parliament, and everything you need to know after Health Minister Mark Butler said the government accepted ATAGI's advice and approved a lower concentration dose of the Moderna COVID vax to be administered to those at high risk of serious illness from COVID, aged 6 months to 5 years. Don't forget, you can sign up to our newsletter, 6 News Now, to check out all our original reporting. Link to do so is also on our website, SIXNewsAU.com. And I was Arvin and Melly with little what's coming up later tonight on WAMN News.
Thanks, Leo. Tonight on WAMN News, a refugee father dying alone in a Perth hospital faces further heartache as his family are delayed by COVID. A WAMN News exclusive.
Protests demanding the Australian government intervene over the Julian Assange case.
Serious warnings over Bentley Hospital's maternity ward reopening as the delay drags on.
Advocates raising awareness of cure for deadly cat COVID, and later Dr. Andrew Miller's comment. Join us tonight on the WAMN News Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Alright, thanks both Arvin and Melly. There now to tomorrow's weather forecast right across the country. Brisbane sunny, 21 degrees. A chance of showers, 15 in Sydney, 13 degrees in Canberra, partly cloudy in Melbourne, also 13, 12 in Hobart, Adelaide 15 degrees, 22 in Alice Springs, rain 17 in Perth, and in Darwin a warm top of 33. Before we go tonight, recapping the top story here on 6 News this hour, New South Wales Premier Dominic Perrottet has called on the Liberals to not be seen as Labor light in the first state council since the federal election loss, saying the Liberals cannot be a party that simply runs on its track record and doesn't set a vision for the future, as the Young Liberals make their own submission to a post-election review, writing that the Morrison government failed to deliver on its promise of a federal ICAC and the parties failed to attract, retain and promote women. And just finally, a reminder of our by-election coverage for 2 upcoming by-elections, North West Central and Fanny Bay. North West Central in WA is coming up on, well, we don't actually know yet. That's the thing, we haven't actually had a by-election date set, but what we do know is that the Liberals have a candidate, Legalised Cannabis is trying to get a candidate. We've got details on that. It's an interesting seat. It's only had, a couple of MPs, but and a couple of name changes, might I add, but again, full details on our website. And also, Fanny Bay up in the NT after Michael Gunner, former Territory Chief Minister, retired. That seat has had 5 MPs since it was created. 3 of them have gone on to be Chief Ministers. We've got details on that. The Country Liberals could certainly win and make some gains in the NT Legislative Assembly, but Labor could also hold on. So we'll keep covering that for you. That's the August 20 by-election and the unknown date by-election for North West Central. North West Central decides, Fanny Bay decides. Full coverage, 6newsau.com right now. And that is 6 News for this Sunday evening. You can stay up to date by heading to our website, 6newsau.com, and by following us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Lit. Just search 6newsau to find us. Help keep us independent as well by donating just $4 a month and receive exclusive benefits on Patreon, patreon.com/6newsau. I'm Leonardo Puglisi. Thanks for your company. Good night.